This episode of the Moms Network is brought to you in part by the DuPage County JATC. Make a choice, make a connection, make a career.
Welcome back. Our next guest is Jason Stipp, the principal of Waubonsie Valley High School. I only know what it's like to manage 2 kids in high school. Running a whole school of kids, that's a big job. Jason, can you tell us a little more about yourself and how you got into education?
Sure. Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you for coming.
I really appreciate it. I'm going into my 9th year now over at Waubonsie Valley High School. And before then, I was an administrator in Wheaton, and I taught in Wheaton, and I also taught in Morris, and I come from a real small town. So I've always wanted to be a part of a high school experience. I've enjoyed teaching in high school, being around high school students, and this position has been a real natural fit for me, and just leading, but also being a part of the high school experience still. So I've really enjoyed it.
What is your favorite part of being the principal?
I think the thing that I enjoy most is I can provide some leverage for students. I enjoy being connected with students, and when they run into issues or if there's things that I can support them on through this journey, I'm able to do that. And they have a direct connection to that resource. I can get them with a counselor. I can get them with a support staff. I can help them engage their teacher or even their parent. So that's something that I enjoy being an equalizer for students and being that lever. I also love watching them shine at this level, as they do some amazing things at this level, and to watch them start getting to that level to where they realize their talents and skills and hard work is paying off. That's always something that really, that really connects with me as well.
What's your largest struggle, would you say?
I would say probably balancing the social media piece that they are so engaged in now, where they feel they're so connected, but I feel like they're not as connected as I would like them to be. But they have all of these layers outside of school where they have their hands on so much information than any other generation does, and it's kind of the abundance of information, how to kind of peel some of that back and more live in the moment and realize that maybe some of this stuff isn't as important, that what you're doing now is going to kind of support you and you're going to be just fine. So just trying to kind of get them to realize, especially in this community, you're a high school kid. You can be a high school kid, and you don't have to be 20 steps ahead all the time. So.
And we've talked about the social media thing on here before, about how different that is now. As a high school student, you can't just go home at the end of the day. I mean, you're seeing it all the time. And it is hard around here to not get on, Instagram and say, oh, these people already know what their path is after college and I don't. I need to catch up with them. Maybe you don't need to catch up with them. Maybe you're fine just being a kid.
Yeah, it definitely heightens that comparable issue, and trying to figure out where you are, it adds some layers to it. So.
Do you find that most of your kids kind of know exactly where they're going, or is it more they're fumbling a little bit and feeling a lot of pressure that, hey, I'm 16 and I haven't figured out what my whole life is going to look like yet?
The latter, I think. I mean, I think we're kidding ourselves if, school's getting ready to start, and I too am like, I've been doing it several years, but I'm like, okay, we can do this. I mean, that's part of life, right? And you have to own that, just like getting a new job, moving, starting college, and there is some anxiousness with that, and enjoy that, and want that experience. I always tell students freshman year when they come in, my simple message to them is, I tell all freshmen this message, that if you can answer 2 questions for yourself in these 4 years, the 2 questions of what is something you're good at and what is something you love to do. That is kind of a general rule of what I think high school should give you some direction on. Like, what are some things I'm good at that I really do well, so that I can build on those, whether it be college, trade, military, and what is something I really love to do? What are something that really like excites me? And if high school can be the foundation to answer those questions, you're going to get your money out of whatever you decide to do, a college, a training school, or whatever. But if you can just focus on that instead of like, I'm going to go into business and I'm going to be a business major and this is what, like instead like, what do you love to do and what are you good at? That will really, if you can simplify it like that, that can make all the difference, you know?
I love that. I love that. And eliminate a little bit too. I mean, what do you not love to do? And then know that you don't have to do that just because mom and dad are, you know, engineers and you really don't like math. It's okay, you know, if you are a writer, you know,
about it.
Makes sense.
And if you don't have the joy, you know, I often compare this job a lot to parenting because there's like it's fun, debatable at times, right? But there's so much joy in it, right? And there's just, if you don't find the joy in what you're doing, and we talk about this work-life balance, but at the end of the day, work's going to take a lot from you, and schooling's going to take a lot from you. But if you don't find the joy in what you're studying and what you're loving to do, it's going to be a long road for sure.
Right. And sometimes I think the conversation, like one of my children would say, he kind of thought you had to not like your job so much. Like, you know, I shouldn't. Like, I'm enjoying doing this so much, and even though it's my job, I shouldn't be enjoying it. I mean, it should be hard. No, then you found the perfect thing, and even though it wasn't what you thought you were going to do, you found the secret sauce. Like, that's what we all want to be able to do, because you work a long time.
Sure.
And you hear that all the time from any age. I hear it from my friends all the time. Well, I'm looking for something, but you know, it's a job. You're miserable no matter what. And I'm thinking, are you? Are you really miserable no matter what?
I see patients sometimes, and they come in, and this one guy sticks out to me so specifically. He hated his job. I mean, his stomach was in knots, but he made a lot of money, and they had an expensive house. And at one day he came in, I just looked at him, I go, you realize you could get a different job? And he just looked a little paralyzed, and he was like, we'd have to sell our house. I said, you can sell your house. I'm like, you're miserable. Like, and it's coming out physically. So I think finding that joy, finding that passion. We just had a networking luncheon for the branch recently, and we had a speaker who was talking about unwrapping your joy and finding something in your life. And if you can translate that into some work that you're doing, then it's amazing.
And I think understanding that you're going to reinvent yourself too as time goes. We feel like we have to be in that silo, but giving yourself the chance to reinvent is a key. So I have an incoming freshman and a senior Waubonsie.
Keep them coming.
Definitely am in the high school chaos. And looking back at all the phases with my kids, I have to say, this is probably one of my toughest parenting phase that I never realized. And I think it's just the environment we live in, the pressure that the high school students have, and the whole college planning in the horizon. So what advice would you give to high school parents? How best to navigate it all?
Well, one of the things, like one of my former students, I remember she was kicking around two very comparable schools, all the way like until the middle of summer. And I told her, I'm like, you can't do this. You've got to commit, you know. And I think one of the strengths of this community is the opportunities and everything that we have in front of us. But one of the challenges is all of these opportunities and all these things we know, right? And I always tell kids, like, sometimes when they pick a list that's so big, and just like speaking with your daughter earlier, and she's like, I think we'd land on the Midwest, like, okay, step forward, now we got the Midwest. And then like I would, you know, because some of those schools like are going to start looking very comparable, and when they get more tied up with what's on my sweatshirt and, you know, where so-and-so's going, and I just talked to another former student that got accepted to 2 places, and she ended up choosing a lesser of a school in her mind. But she made the right decision, not in her mind, but some might perceive as that, for a medical school. But she was like, I'm going to get more opportunities at that school. I'm going to be able to experience more things. I'm going to get financially supported better, and it's going to help my family. And those are all good decisions to make. So I think if you make those decisions about like what has a good feel for you, and then as soon as you decide when you land on a place, then a step forward, like, okay, we're going to stick with the Midwest. Now let's step forward with this. Now big school or small school? Okay, big school. Okay, now let's go to these 3. And I would just kind of chunk it out like that, and don't get distracted with going all over the place because you're going to get overwhelmed with all of the choices. And
you'd be like, wait, what was the one that had this on
they
it?
all start looking the same. And I went to Eastern Illinois. My dad spun the cardinal direction and said, anywhere in Illinois.
That was what we did.
And I said, you'll make it what you want to make it. And if college is your road, then you will definitely make it what you want it to be.
Right.
So yeah.
And I think that you're right. The options are so much. And I know with my two older ones, Waubonsie graduates, but my two older ones, they went
I'm
to
starting
two
to see how I
totally.
got on the show.
But they were two totally different kids, and they went to two totally different colleges. And I love that idea of where do you feel like what feels right first, because you're there for 4 years. And I told both of them, and I'll tell the third one too. Whatever you do, whether it's college or the trades, I want you to leave that place a better place than when you got there. And I thought that with high school, and I told them, is this a campus that you feel like you can make a difference? Not only will it work for you, but can you make a difference here? And that worked for them. And one went to play sports and then got injured and stopped playing sports. Don't choose it because of the sports team or the coach, because you have no control. Choose it because you feel like that's a place I could grow and thrive and become a better human being.
So in the last few years, have you seen any type of shift with kids that, there's always been this typical four-year college is the success path, but any shift with people being more interested in trades or other avenues, even more COD, more community college path? Do you see any big shift, or is it always been something that's relevant?
Well, I think a few things. I think as college gets more expensive, I think that's something people are making some more economically wiser decisions about, like where are their students going. So I think that's one thing. I also think that we've always talked about, like, you need to do something when you leave. You have to have some type of continued education, and what's that look like? And we try to offer, thankfully, in our district, and whether it be through TCD or whether it be through our different programming with that promote the skills, like our Project Lead the Way classes and our auto maintenance and the FACS and all of those electives that kids can take. They can really start seeing maybe there is a different route for me. So I think that's something that we always knew it was there, whether it be the military or whatever, but I do think that I think we're starting to have some more honest conversations about maybe this 4-year have to go to college just because everybody else is, and it has to be at this place with this on your sweatshirt. Maybe that's not. We're still, 86% of our students, that is still the path they take, and that is a path that they will take. And then maybe I'll own my own hair salon, or maybe but they still realize the importance of, I need to get some type of degree. But people are making better decisions about, like, where that is, what's, do I want to spend all of this money and take all these loans out to become a social worker, if I can do a social worker here without the amount of loans and make the impact. So I think you're seeing, I always say that's the big next debate, is just these loans, just because it's like, it's really putting
They're debilitating.
they are. For a profession, or a lot of professions where you'll spend your whole life paying that off. So.
That's very true.
I just paid my student loans off last year.
Wow.
And I went through 3 years of college and then chiropractic school, and I remember I hit that button on that last payment. I was like, yes! But I mean, mine was almost a mini mortgage payment.
Absolutely.
But I got a professional degree out of it, and my whole career is based off it. So there's some places where those loans make complete sense, and others where, unfortunately, it can straddle a child as they grow into adulthood. So.
Absolutely.
So question for you. My kids have been raised in Naperville schools, and I know we have a strong high school system in Naperville. And how do you find that has prepared our students going into college and just into adulthood?
Well, one of the first questions I ask all graduates when they come back is, like, did you feel prepared? And I've yet to run into any graduate that has said, no, I wasn't. And if in any case, it's more of like, actually, my freshman year was a lot easier than my last couple of years. And so that is our job. As elementary, prepare for middle, high school, our job is post-secondary. So whether it be trade, whether it be military, whether it be college, whether it be anything else out, our job is to prepare students for that next step. So I feel we're constantly working at it. but I feel our students, I feel good knowing when after graduation they're ready to move on. So.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. High school kids have a lot of pressure on them to not only get great grades, but to also know what their future holds at such an early age. I'm glad we have principals like Mr. Stipp to help guide the way.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching the Moms Network. And remember, you're always invited. Thank you.
This episode of the Moms Network is brought to you in part by the DuPage County JATC. Make a choice, make a connection, make a career.